Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. In Islamic tradition, animals are not simple creatures devoid of consciousness. The Quran teaches us that they glorify Allah in their own way, even if we do not understand their language. Some stories speak of animals capable of recognizing the piety, spiritual light, or even the holiness of certain human beings. This has fueled the belief among many Muslims that certain animals have a special sensitivity to what is invisible to the human eye. In this video, we will discover 7 animals which, according to certain religious texts or popular stories, are capable of recognizing a wali, someone chosen by Allah. The wali, in Islam, is a person very close to God, recognized for his faith, his piety, and his sincerity. Allah loves and protects them, and sometimes subtle signs, including animal behavior, reveal their spiritual rank. It is important to remember that some of these stories are based on authentic hadiths, others on Sufi stories or cultural traditions. So, while listening to them with interest, let us distinguish between what is part of the established faith and what belongs to the spiritual and popular heritage. Who are the chosen ones of Allah, Awliya Allah? In Islamic tradition, a still, plural saints, is a person close to Allah, a faithful servant who has reached a high level of piety, sincerity, and devotion. It is not an official title, but rather a spiritual state recognized by Allah alone. These individuals generally live in discretion, far from any pretension or search for fame. They do not consider themselves elected because their humility matches their faith. Allah describes His chosen ones in the Quran. Verily, the chosen ones of Allah feel neither fear nor sadness. Those who believe and fear Allah. Surah Yunus, verses 62 to 63. This verse highlights 2 fundamental criteria: sincere faith, and respectful fear of Allah, piety. The saints are therefore exemplary believers who devote their lives to obedience, worship, and compassion towards others. Prophet Muhammad also mentioned in hadiths that Allah protects His allies and responds to their supplications. In a famous Qudsi hadith reported by Al-Bukhari, Allah says, "Whoever attacks one of my allies, I declare war on him." The saints are often blessed with interior light, wisdom, and deep peace. Their company is calming, and certain signs of their rank can appear, sometimes even perceived by animals, according to certain stories, which we will discover in this video. Animals and the spiritual world in Islam. In the Quran, Allah reminds us that animals are creatures conscious of Him and who glorify Him in their own way, even if we do not understand their language. Do you not see that Allah is glorified by all those in the heavens and the earth, and by the birds that spread their wings? Everyone has certainly learned their own way of praying and glorifying Him. Surah An-Nur, verse 41. Islam teaches a deep respect for nature and animals, which are an integral part of divine creation. Many stories show animals playing a specific role in Allah's plans, by guiding prophets, serving as protection, or reacting in unusual ways to the pious. Their behavior can sometimes be a sign of the invisible world, a reflection of their spiritual sensitivity. 1. The cat Islamic context. In Islam, the cat is a respected and appreciated animal. He is known for his purity, gentleness, and independence. The Prophet Muhammad had a special affection for cats, and several accounts report that he treated them with kindness and mercy. Story or anecdote. One of the most famous companions of the Prophet, Abu Huraira, literally the father of the kitten, had this nickname because he used to keep a little cat with him. The Prophet never reproached him for this. On the contrary, this name remained a symbol of affection. A hadith reported by Al-Bukhari mentions that a cat once slept on the coat of the Prophet. When he had to get up for prayer, instead of disturbing the animal, he cut off the part of the garment on which it was resting. This gesture reveals prophetic tenderness towards Allah's creatures, even the smallest. In some Sufi traditions and popular stories, cats are said to have the ability to sense blessing of a place or person. It is not uncommon to hear believers say that a cat often comes to sleep near a pious person or calmly attend moments of dhikr, invocation, as if attracted by a spiritual energy. Symbolism. The cat symbolizes purity, tranquility, and sensitivity. It is also seen as an animal that likes clean places, which is a virtue highly valued in Islam. Behavior towards piles. In many stories, we note that cats seek the company of spiritual people, settle in mosques or near the tombs of saints, or even rest calmly during prayers. Some see it as an instinctive recognition of the spiritual light nur emanating from these places or people. Through these astonishing and inspiring stories, we discover a profound truth. In the Islamic vision, the visible world and the spiritual world are not separated. Animals, like humans, are an integral part of Allah's creation. They obey their Lord, glorify Him, and sometimes they are silent witnesses to the holiness of a place or a person. Their behavior can become a sign, a subtle indication of what the eyes cannot see, but which the heart can sometimes feel. These stories, whether from the Quran, hadiths, or cultural traditions, teach us to treat animals with respect and compassion, because they are creatures honored by Allah. They share this earth with us and participate, each in their own way, in the symphony of divine glorification. Finally, let's keep in mind that no one can claim to know who is a true wali, one chosen by Allah, except Him. External signs, even those perceived by animals, never replace divine judgment. The knowledge of hearts and souls belongs to Allah alone. Through these astonishing and inspiring stories, we discover a profound truth. In the Islamic vision, the visible world and the spiritual world are not separated. Animals, like humans, are an integral part of Allah's creation. They obey their Lord, glorify Him, and sometimes they are silent witnesses to the holiness of a place or a person. Their behavior can become a sign, a subtle indication of what the eyes cannot see, but which the heart can sometimes feel. These stories, whether from the Quran, hadiths, or cultural traditions, teach us to treat animals with respect and compassion, because they are creatures honored by Allah. They share this earth with us and participate, each in their own way, in the symphony of divine glorification. Finally, let's keep in mind that no one can claim to know who is a true wali, one chosen by Allah, except Him. External signs, even those perceived by animals, never replace divine judgment. The knowledge of hearts and souls belongs to Allah alone. 2. The dog of the cave, Al-Haqq. Islamic context. The story of Gens de la Caverne, Al-Haqq, is told in Surah Al-Kahf, 18, verses 9 to 26. It is about a group of young believers who, faced with a tyrannical king imposing idolatry, decided to flee to preserve their faith. They found refuge in a cave, where Allah made them sleep for several centuries, miraculously preserving them from time and external dangers. History. With them was a loyal dog, mentioned explicitly in the Quran, and their dog stretched his paws on the threshold. Surah Al-Kahf, verse 18. This detail is not trivial. The dog, in this context, becomes a spiritual companion, silent guardian of these pious young people. His behavior is noble. He watches over the entrance to the cave, loyal and ready to defend his masters, even in sleep. Despite the prolonged sleep of the young people, he remains at his post, as if frozen in time by the will of Allah. The fact that an animal is cited in such a profound Quranic story gives the dog a special status, which is often perceived in certain cultures as impure. In Islam, this judgment is nuanced. This story shows that loyalty and obedience to Allah transcends even species. Symbolism. The cave dog embodies the loyalty, the vigilance, and the loyalty to believers. He is an example of how a creature, through his sincere behavior, can be honored by Allah. Behavior towards pious. In certain spiritual or popular stories, it is said that dogs instinctively recognize pious people or blessed places by adopting calm or protective behavior. Although these ideas do not come directly from canonical texts, they are inspired by this Quranic model, where an animal stands alongside Allah's chosen ones, not by word, but by attitude. 4. The ant and the prophet. Sulaiman Islamic context. The prophet Sulaiman, Solomon, is one of the most amazing prophets of the Quran. Allah had granted him special gifts: understanding the language of animals, mastery of the wind, command over the jinns. He reigned over a vast kingdom where humans, jinns, and beasts coexisted under his just authority. One of the most famous episodes concerning Sulaiman is found in the Surah An-Naml, the ants. Allah mentions an exchange between Sulaiman and an ant. When they arrived at the valley of the ants, an ant said, "O ants, enter your homes, lest Sulaiman and his armies crush you without realizing it." He smiled, amused by her words. Surah An-Naml, verses 18 to 19. History. This passage reveals that animals, even the smallest ones like ants, possess a form of intelligence and consciousness. Not only does this ant speak to its fellows, but it also knows Sulaiman's identity, his power, and it assumes that he is benevolent since he would not do them any harm voluntarily. Sulaiman, upon hearing his words, reacted neither with pride nor with anger. He smiles gratefully and turns to Allah in supplication, recognizing that this power is only a divine favor. This simple moment illustrates a subtle connection between the spiritual and the animal world. Symbolism. The ant represents the discreet wisdom, the communication within communities, and above all, awareness of the presence of the prophets and the chosen ones of Allah. She acts with caution, warns her people, and respects the prophet. Behavior towards elected officials. This story shows that even the smallest creatures can feel or recognize spiritual greatness of a prophet. In Islamic tradition, this reminds us that the knowledge, piety, and power given by Allah inspire respect for all creation, including those we believe to be insignificant. 5. The bird Hudhud, the hoopoe. Islamic context. The Prophet Sulaiman, Solomon, endowed by Allah with exceptional gifts, ruled a unique kingdom where humans, jinns, and animals cooperated together. Among his servants was a bird named Huddu, the hoopoe, mentioned in the Quran for its important role in one of the Prophet's missions. History. In the Surah An-Naml, Allah tells how Sulaiman was reviewing his army, including the birds. He was surprised at the absence of the hudhud and threatened to punish him unless he had a valid reason. "I will punish him severely or slit his throat unless he gives me a valid excuse." Surah An-Naml, verse 21. Shortly after, the bird returned with crucial information. He had discovered the kingdom of Sheba, ruled by a queen, Bilqis, who worshipped the sun instead of Allah. Hudhud said, "I found out what you don't know. I come from Saba with certain news." Verse 22. He informed Sulaiman of the existence of these people, their system of governance, their idolatry, and thus allowed Sulaiman to send a message calling for the worship of the one God. It was this relationship that triggered the famous meeting between Sulaiman and the Queen of Sheba, and his conversion to Islam. Symbolism. Hudhud symbolic la clairvoyance, l'intelligence, and the fidelity to the divine mission. He is not just a messenger, but a watchman, capable of recognizing idolatry and denouncing it. He acts with a clear spiritual conscience, knowing what pleases or displeases Allah. Behavior towards elected officials. Hudhud does not flee the confrontation with Sulaiman, but relies on his wisdom. He thus demonstrates that even among animals, some are bearers of truth and guidance when they are integrated into a prophetic mission. It is a striking example of an animal playing a major spiritual role in the service of one chosen by Allah. 6. The protective serpent. Mystical stories. Traditional context. Unlike other animals mentioned directly in the Quran, the snake does not appear in a specific spiritual role in the fundamental texts of Islam. However, in some Sufi traditions, popular legends or hagiographical stories, the snake sometimes occupies an intriguing place, that of a mystical guardian or a protector of the pious. Stories and stories. In several oral stories, particularly in the Muslim cultures of North Africa, the Middle East and South Asia, it is said that snakes appear near the tombs of saints, awliya, or surround their homes without ever harming anyone. Sometimes they are described as harmless towards pious people, but fierce towards those who would approach sacred places with evil intentions. Some stories tell that great Sufi masters, immersed in prayer in the solitude of the desert or the mountains, were protected from wild beasts or thieves by a snake come to curl up calmly at their side or at the entrance to their cave. In these stories, the snake is not seen as a symbol of fear, but rather as a sign of divine protection manifested by nature itself. Symbolism. The serpent is here interpreted as a creature in the service of the spiritual order, able to distinguish sincere piety. It represents vigilance, mystery, and the border between the visible and the invisible. But this role is attributed to it only in certain mystical traditions, not in orthodox doctrine. To qualify, it is essential to remember that these stories are not from the Quran or authentic hadiths. They are part of a cultural and spiritual heritage, often conveyed through Sufi tales or hagiographical writings. They should therefore not be taken as religious proofs, but as poetic expressions of the intimate relationship between nature and the servants of Allah. Behavior towards elected officials. According to these stories, the serpent recognizes holiness and becomes a silent protector, guided not by fear, but by a form of spiritual perception. It thus becomes, in the mystical imagination, a guardian of the sacred. Here is a text of approximately 200-300 characters dedicated to cave pigeon, Hira, in the story of the Hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad and his companion Abu Bakr. 7. The pigeon in the cave, Hira, Islamic context. One of the most significant moments in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the Hijrah, his emigration from Mecca to Medina in 622, when he fled the growing hostility of the Quraysh. This journey, marking a decisive turning point in the history of Islam, is recounted in several hadiths and historical stories. During their escape, the Prophet and his companion Abu Bakr hid in the Grotta de Thor, located a few kilometers south of Mecca. It was there that a miracle occurred, attributed to the mercy of Allah. While the Quraysh were looking for them, ready to do anything to capture Muhammad, a pigeon and one spider web played a crucial role in their protection. History. According to the story, when the cave was almost deserted, a pigeon came nest at the entrance to the cave, laying eggs. At the same time, a spider weaved a web at the entrance, making the cave appear inaccessible and ignored by pursuers. The Quraysh, seeing the spider's web and the pigeon's eggs, concluded that the cave had been abandoned for a long time and did not even think of looking for the fugitives there. This scene, reported in certain hadiths and historical stories, illustrates how Allah used elements of nature to protect His chosen ones, acting through the simplicity and apparent insignificance of these creatures. The pigeon, with its discreet but determining presence, is seen as a symbol of divine protection and the blessing that accompanies the prophets. Symbolism. The pigeon in this story represents the protection, discretion, and divine vigilance. Its role as a dungeon at the entrance to the cave underlines the idea that the simplest means can serve as great miracles, and that faith and trust in Allah are enough to receive His protection, even in the most perilous moments. Behavior towards piles. In this context, the pigeon acts not only as an element of nature, but also as silent guardian of the divine mission. It shows that sometimes the smallest creatures have a role to play in Allah's grand design and can protect God's chosen ones from any external threats.